New Year's Eve has a very dark secret, and I'll prove it's controlling you right now. What if I told you that January 1st was specifically chosen to program your consciousness for failure? And what if the people who created this calendar system knew exactly what they were doing? There's a reason it's called New Year's Eve, not coincidence. It's right there in the name. Eve, the original deception, the original fall, and you celebrate it every single year without knowing what you're actually invoking. Before you dismiss this, let me show you something that'll break your perception of time itself. Look at the date, January 1st. Why does the year begin in the dead of winter? Why not spring when nature actually renews? Why not the solstice when the sun returns? Why this arbitrary point in the middle of winter darkness? Because the people who designed this system weren't measuring nature's cycles. They were creating a control mechanism, an annual reset ritual that keeps you trapped in a perpetual cycle of hope, failure, guilt, and reset. And here's what they don't tell you. The traditions you perform on December 31st, the countdown, the kiss at midnight, the resolutions, the champagne, every single one was specifically designed to program a frequency of perpetual dissatisfaction. A frequency that says, you're not enough, but next year, if you try harder, maybe you'll finally be worthy. And here's where it gets disturbing. The god of January is Janus, the two-faced god. One face looks backward with regret. One face looks forward with false hope. You're taught to do the same every New Year's Eve. Reflect on your failures. Promise to do better. Year after year after year. Sound familiar? They didn't just create a holiday. They created a psychological loop that harvests your energy annually. You set goals you'll abandon by February. You promise change that never comes. You start fresh while carrying the same patterns. The calendar resets. But you don't. You just feel guilty about it. And every year, right on schedule, you participate in the ritual without knowing what you're actually programming into your subconscious. I am incomplete. Next cycle, I'll be better. But next cycle never comes. Because the system was designed that way. And New Year's Eve, why is it called Eve? Most people think it just means evening. You know, the evening before a holy day. Borrowed from religious terminology, sure, that's the surface explanation. But Eve carries much deeper programming. Way deeper. Biblical Eve. First woman, first deception, first fall from grace. The serpent convinces Eve to eat the forbidden fruit. The promise? You will become like God, knowing good and evil. The reality? Exile from paradise, introduction of death, original sin. Humanity's first mistake, encoded into mythology forever. And every New Year's Eve, you're symbolically reenacting the fall. You're standing at that same threshold. Temptation in front of you. The promise of transformation. The belief that this time, you'll finally achieve divinity. Finally become who you're supposed to be. But it's the same trap. Different year, same deception. Same promise of godhood through knowledge, through improvement, through one more cycle of trying. And the symbolism gets even more blatant. Why count down to midnight? Seriously, why not dawn? Dawn is the actual beginning of a day. The sun rises, light returns. That would make sense for a new beginning, right? But no. We count down to midnight. Midnight. The witching hour. The liminal space between days. The death of the old and birth of the new happening simultaneously in darkness. In occult tradition, midnight is when the veil is thinnest, when supernatural forces have the most power, when magic works best. That's not folklore. That's been understood across cultures for thousands of years. And here you are, New Year's Eve. Billions of people performing the exact same action at the exact same moment. A collective global countdown. Mass ritual synchronized across time zones. Think about what that creates. Billions of people, all focused on the same symbols, all counting down together, all releasing the same emotions at midnight. The champagne toast. Who are you toasting to? What deity receives that offering? Because that's what a toast is, a libation, an offering to a higher power. The kiss at midnight. Why? What are you sealing with that kiss? It's consent. You're sealing the spell. You're agreeing to enter the new cycle. And the ball drop in Times Square. 1 million people watching a massive illuminated sphere descend from above, like the serpent in the tree, descending with knowledge, with temptation. That sphere, is it an apple? Is it an all-seeing eye? Is it both? 1 million people watching the physical manifestation of the ritual, and billions more watching on screens, all synchronized, all participating. But midnight is just the surface. The real programming happens in what you're taught to do at midnight. And the average person makes 3 to 5 New Year's resolutions. But studies show 80% are abandoned by the second week of February. Not a month in, 2 weeks. And 92% are never achieved at all. Most people assume that's a personal failure. Lack of discipline, lack of willpower. But this isn't failure, it's the design. And the resolution is not the solution. It's the mechanism. And the language proves it. But this isn't symbolism. It's etymology. The word resolution comes from the Latin resolutio, documented in institutional use by the 14th century. In legal and ecclesiastical contexts, it meant a binding decision, a formal declaration that carries obligation. A resolution is not a hope. It's a contract. And when you make a New Year's resolution, you're formally declaring that something is wrong with you and promising correction through future behavior. When that promise fails, which it statistically does, guilt is the enforcement mechanism. That's why the cycle repeats. Now look at the song. Auld Lang Syne is a Scots phrase first recorded in the late 1700s. It means old long since. It is a song about the past, about loss, about what's already gone. It's sung at the exact moment the calendar resets. Then comes the declaration, the resolution, the contract. You confess inadequacy, you promise improvement, you fail on schedule. You internalize guilt, the calendar resets, you don't. And that isn't accidental. January, named after Janus, Roman god of doorways, transitions, beginnings, endings, time itself. And Janus is depicted with 2 faces, one looking backward, one looking forward, never looking at the present moment, always divided between past and future. He's the god of doorways, the gatekeeper, the one who controls who enters and who doesn't. The doorkeeper of heaven itself in Roman mythology. Every New Year's you embody Janus. You're taught to do exactly what he does. Look back, regret, shame. I wasted this year. I didn't accomplish enough. Where did the time go? Look forward, hope, false promises. This time will be different. Next year, I'll finally get it together. Fresh start. Neither face looks at now. Both faces keep you out of the present moment. And the present moment is where your actual power exists, but you're too busy looking backward and forward to notice. Janus holds the keys. You're asking permission to enter the new cycle. You're petitioning him, making offerings, promising to be better, to do better, to finally be worthy. But here's the question nobody asks. Who's the gatekeeper? Who are you really asking permission from? Because Janus isn't the oldest god you're worshipping on New Year's Eve. January 1st itself is built on something far more ancient and far more controlling. Let's talk about nature for a second. Because nature doesn't begin its cycles in January. Nothing in the natural world starts in the dead of winter. Spring equinox, March 20th or 21st depending on the year. That's when nature actually renews. When seeds sprout, when flowers bloom, when life returns after winter's death. Or the winter solstice, December 21st or 22nd. That's when the sun is reborn, when light begins returning. When the darkest night gives way to increasing daylight. Those would make sense as New Year starting points. They're based on actual cosmic events, actual natural cycles. But January 1st, it has no astronomical significance. None. No equinox, no solstice, no lunar event. Nothing. Harvest cycles don't align with January. Agricultural calendars have never used January as a starting point. And here's what's really interesting. Ancient calendars began the year at completely different times. Egyptian calendar, September. Because that's when the Nile flooded, bringing fertile soil for crops. Persian calendar, March. Spring equinox, nature's renewal. Hebrew calendar, Rosh Hashanah, around September. The fall. Celtic calendar, Samhain, October 31st to November 1st. The transition into winter when the veil between worlds is thinnest. Chinese calendar. The new moon between January 21st and February 20th. It varies each year based on actual lunar cycles. See the pattern? Every ancient culture based their calendar on something real, something observable, something that mattered for survival. But January 1st? Completely arbitrary. No natural significance whatsoever. So why this date? Because the Roman Empire needed a specific kind of control. The original Roman calendar had 10 months. 10. It began in March. Martius, named after Mars. And here's your proof that January wasn't always the beginning. December. From Decamen 10, it was the 10th month. September. From Septimeli 7. The 7th month, October. From Octo, 8, the 8th month, November. From Novem, 9. The 9th month. The names literally prove that the year once began in March. The months are numbered from March, not January. Then Julius Caesar reformed the calendar in 46 BCE, the Julian calendar. He added January and February to the beginning of the year, moved New Year from spring to dead winter. Why? Military and political control. Easier to collect taxes with a standardized date, easier to synchronize the empire under one time system. One calendar, one authority. January, named after Janus, god of transitions, god of control over doorways and beginnings. And later, in 1582, Pope Gregory XIII refined it. The Gregorian calendar, the one we still use today. The Catholic Church imposed it globally, through colonization, through conquest, through religious authority. Indigenous peoples all over the world were forced to abandon their natural cycles, their connection to seasons, to harvests, to lunar phases, forced to adopt the Roman grid. The calendar became a weapon of colonization, a way to disconnect people from nature and sync them to empire. And when you understand who they were really worshipping through this calendar system, everything clicks into place. The Roman calendar originally began with Saturnalia, December 17th through the 25th, the festival of Saturn. Saturn, god of time, agriculture, dissolution, limitation, boundaries, the taskmaster, the one who restricts. The January reforms placed Janus, the god of transitions, right after Saturn's festival. Janus is the gatekeeper. Saturn is the time prison. New Year's isn't giving you a fresh start. You're transitioning from one time prison cell to the next. Different cell, same prison. Saturn's day is Saturday. The week ends with Saturn's energy. Completion, limitation. Rest because you're exhausted from the work week. Saturn's month is December, Saturnalia. The worship of time and limitation disguised as celebration. In astrology, Saturn represents restriction, karma, lessons, discipline through suffering. The Lord of Karma, the teacher through hard lessons. The planet of limitation and time. New Year's resolutions. Those are Saturn's lessons. The ones you promise to finally learn. The ways you'll finally discipline yourself. But here's the thing about Saturn. He never releases you. The lessons repeat until you break the cycle yourself. He keeps you locked in the pattern. And modern psychology has proven this doesn't work. Studies from the University of Scranton, Journal of Clinical Psychology, multiple research institutions have looked at this. Only 8% of people achieve their New Year's resolutions. 8%. Why such a catastrophic failure rate? Brain science explains it. Willpower is a finite resource. It's called ego depletion. You only have so much willpower each day, and it runs out. Resolutions based on shame and inadequacy create a weak motivational foundation. You're trying to change because you hate where you are, not because you love where you're going. Real behavioral change requires an identity shift, not just behavioral promises, not just I will do X. You need to become someone who does X naturally. But New Year's creates pressure and deadlines, and pressure creates stress. Stress floods your body with cortisol. Cortisol impairs decision-making and willpower. You're biologically set up to fail from the start. The ritual isn't about helping you improve. It's about keeping you in the cycle. Hope, then failure, then guilt, then hope again. Round and round. So they've trapped you in a Roman time control system that programs annual failure. But the programming starts much earlier than you think, because they condition you for this trap from childhood. Think about childhood New Year's Eve. You're allowed to stay up until midnight. Special privilege. Big deal. What's that teaching? That something magical happens at an arbitrary moment. That midnight on December 31st is different from any other midnight. Building anticipation for what exactly? A number changing on a calendar? But your child brain learns something deeper. External timekeeping determines the value of a moment. The clock says it's special, so it's special. Not your internal knowing, not your own perception. External authority. The clock, the calendar, and then the countdown. 10, 9, 8, 7. Counting backward to what? To nothing. To an arbitrary date rollover. But watch what happens. Noisemakers, confetti, screaming, celebrating. Mass hysteria over a number changing. What's being taught? Participate in collective excitement over meaningless symbolic transitions. This is training for adult life. Get excited about promotions, about raises, about milestones. All arbitrary markers that someone else decided were important. And they're learning something even more insidious. Children are taught that January 1st equals fresh start. Clean slate, new beginning. But what does that imply? That everything before was failure. Past self was inadequate. You're not good enough as you are now. But next year you can be better. It's never-ending postponement of self-acceptance. When I'm older, when I lose weight, when I get that promotion, when next year comes. This teaches children that the present moment is inadequate. That worthiness exists in some future moment that never actually arrives. Because when next year comes, you're taught to do the same thing again. Look at all your failures. Promise to do better next year. It creates perpetual striving without ever arriving, always chasing, never satisfied. And adults live this pattern without even realizing it. The billion-dollar self-help industry is built entirely on this programming. You're always becoming, never being, always improving, never enough. And the resolutions themselves teach the darkest lesson of all. Children are encouraged to share their resolutions with family. What are you going to do better this year? Teaching. Publicly confess your inadequacy. Announce your flaws to authority figures. Seek approval for your self-improvement plan. Then what happens? Statistically, you fail. 92% failure rate, remember? But now the shame compounds. Not only did you fail, everyone knows you failed. Your family knows, your friends know. You announced it publicly. So next year you either double down, make even more resolutions, try even harder, or you give up entirely. Become cynical. Resolutions don't work anyway. Both paths keep you trapped. The adult version plays out on social media. Resolution posts, public accountability groups, gym membership sign-ups in January that get cancelled by March. The trap is this. You're outsourcing your power to external validation. You're making change dependent on other people witnessing it, approving it, tracking it. But true change happens internally, silently, without announcement, without permission. When you need to announce it, you're seeking validation. When you seek validation, you're giving your power away. And the final childhood programming is the most destructive of all. New Year's teaches children that time is the master and you are the slave. New Year, New You means time dictates when change is possible. Not change when you're ready, but change when the calendar says. And that pattern continues into adulthood. Waiting for Monday to start the diet. Waiting for January to quit the bad habit. Waiting for the right time that never feels right. Time becomes an excuse for inaction. I'll start next week. I'll change next year. But time also becomes pressure for action. New Year's resolution is deadline-based change. And deadlines create stress, and stress undermines sustainable change. By adulthood, you're completely disconnected from natural rhythms. You're living by the Gregorian calendar, the Roman control grid. You wake to alarm clocks, not sunlight. You eat by schedule, not hunger. You work by hours, not energy levels. You sleep when the clock says, not when your body's tired. New Year's Eve is the annual reinforcement of time slavery. The reminder that time controls you, that you don't control time. So they've programmed you since childhood to worship the calendar, confess inadequacy, fail publicly, and obey time as your master. And every year, you perform the ritual that locks this programming in deeper. Let me show you exactly what's happening energetically on December 31st. New Year's Eve is the most globally synchronized moment of the entire year, more synchronized than Christmas, because Orthodox Christians celebrate Christmas on different dates. But New Year's? New Year's happens at midnight in every time zone. It's a 24-hour, rolling wave of collective ritual. As midnight passes across the planet, billions of people perform the exact same actions, watching the clock, counting down, celebrating at the precise moment of transition, making resolutions. The entire world, participating in the same ritual at the same time, in their time zone. The Global Consciousness Project at Princeton University studied this. They set up random number generators all over the world, devices that should produce completely random results with no pattern. And they monitored them during major global events. 9/11, Princess Diana's funeral. New Year's Eve. Whether you interpret this as a psychological effect, a statistical anomaly, or something more symbolic, something impossible happened. The randomness decreased. The numbers showed coherence. Statistical deviation that shouldn't exist. As if millions of people focusing on the same event at the same